Hi there guys, got a little video overview here for you today on the Airmaks Katran. This isn't my rifle, this is one a friend has lent me. He let me borrow it for a little review and he asked us to swap the cock and handle over. But he got it from Crawley surplus store and he's really happy with the support. And at the time of recording this video they do have a range of Katrans in stock. So this particular model is the compact cylinder version. You can get it in longer versions and you can get it fitted with a bottle, but this one is the compact cylinder and it's a very nice little rifle indeed. There's a few reviews already available on the Katran already on YouTube, so I won't go over the basic information again. What I will do though is just give you my opinion on it and things I like and dislike. And we're probably going to swap the cock and handle over to the other side as well. So this rifle has got a couple little things on it that aren't standard. Number one, the Picatinny on the bottom here. This is an M-lock handguard, so any M-lock Picatinny rail should fit. And it's also got the optional bag rider and monopod. Both of these accessories are available from Airmaks Direct. And for me personally, the bag rider and monopod is an absolute necessity if you plan on shooting this thing off a bench. With the rather thin back end here, it's very difficult to get a bag this tall. So without some additional support when shooting off a bench, it's quite gangly. So we'll start off with what I dislike about the rifle, and the first thing I want to mention is that you will need a moderator. It is threaded 1/2 inch UNF under this little thread protector here, but you're definitely going to need a moderator. Although this barrel is shrouded, the compact version at least, the one that's featured here, is very noisy. It definitely does quieten it down a bit when you put a moderator on it, but it's just one of those things to keep in mind. The next thing I want to mention is the buttstock at the back here. This part, the butt pad itself, is made of plastic and it is a little wobbly in the shoulder. I don't know why they've done that, it may just be to save weight, but it is a little wobbly. I won't give it too hard a time as it is primarily a hunting rifle, but when shooting off a bench you can notice the buttstock flexing a little. Although when you're shooting it offhand, and probably when you're out in the field, it's not something that you're going to notice too much. It's just mainly when you're shooting off a bench. While we're at the buttstock here, I just want to mention the magazines. Now, you do get 2 magazines in the rifle, and they do fit very nicely in the buttstock here. The only thing I don't like about it is that when you go to grab the magazines, you tend to pinch the drum here. And if you're not careful, what will happen is you'll allow the magazine to rotate round and a pellet will fall out. Now there is a technique to that and you do get used to it after a little while, but it is something I've noticed. It would have been nice to have sort of like a little protection piece of plastic over the magazine so you got somewhere to pinch it with your thumb. And the very last thing I want to just have a little moan about is the mixture of different types of fasteners. So we see on the side here we've got Torx, we've got Allen keys at the top there, also Allen keys on the bottom, and for all the trigger adjustments. This is sort of a little pet peeve of mine. I really don't like it when different types of fasteners are used. There may very well be a legitimate reason for it, but it's just something that I really don't like to see. If it was all Torx drives I wouldn't have a problem, and if it was all Allen keys I wouldn't have a problem. But the mixture of the two just doesn't sit right with me. But apart from those little niggly bits, this is an absolutely lovely little rifle. The fit and finish on it is absolutely top notch. I'll get you a look inside it in a minute. We're going to flip the cock and handle over, but you'll see what I mean shortly. The laminate grips are very nicely finished, as is the cheek piece. The anodizing is absolutely flawless. I can't find a mark, a blemish in it, and the laser engraving there is really nice and sharp. The safety feels nice and high quality, exactly in the right position. Thumb safety. The cocking arm, absolutely lovely. Nice short throw on the cocking lever there, and the cocking effort is absolutely minimal. The hammer mechanism in this rifle uses a sort of pivot point, so you're not actually pulling back directly on a spring, but rather a lever. So you gain mechanical advantage, allowing the cocking effort to be very minimal. The folding buttstock is absolutely 100% rock solid. It folds back nicely, is attached by a little magnet down here, like that. No rattle, but it's nice and easy to pull it off. And then once you snap the butt in place, there's no wobble or movement in that at all. It's really nice and stable, and that's not going to bother you at all. Some of the AR style buffer tubes are really quite wobbly and nasty, but this one, rock solid. The other thing I really like is the magazines themselves. Really nice and easy to load. Spin absolutely beautifully. They feel like they've got bearings in them. Magazine's nice and high quality. There's no movement in anything. They're nice and easy to load. Got a couple pellets here. All you need to do is rotate the magazine slightly so the pellet hole is misaligned. Drop your pellet in. You don't have to hold the back. You can just drop the pellet right onto the seat. Then when you're done, just allow the drum to rotate back and it holds the pellet in place, ready to be fed. This rifle does use an anti-double load system, which these holes here correspond to. I'll show you that in a minute. But the magazines themselves are really nice bits of kit. And then they snap into the buttstock nice and securely. The buttstock itself is adjustable. So you've got two adjustments on the buttstock. You've got both your cheek riser, which is adjusted by these two Allen keys here. Loosen them and you can pull the cheek piece up or down. Tighten them back and it's rock solid, as is the butt piece. Undo these two screws here and you can move the butt piece in or out. That's using a 3mm Allen key. And you do have a very, very wide range of adjustment. I'm 6'2", so I'm quite tall, and I don't even have it half the way out. That's about right for me. So this rifle is also fitted with a CZ barrel, which is phenomenally accurate. Out of the box, really impressed with the accuracy of this rifle. And even with the compact cylinder, I'm still getting around 80 shots from a 250 bar fill. So more than enough for a little hunting session. Although if you needed or wanted more, they do a longer version. So speaking of shot count, I did do a full shot string over the chrono and I was really quite happy with the results. Sub 20 feet per second spread over an entire shot string, that's not bad, as it really hasn't been shot a lot yet and the regulator still needs to be bed in. Speaking of the regulator, it is set round 90 bar, that's when the power starts to drop, but I'm glad to say there's no spike when it comes off reg. So next I just want to show you quickly the anti-double load system. So when we cock the rifle, like so, this little pin here pops out. It stays popped out for as long as we've got the rifle cocked, and even if we pull the bolt back and forward, this pin here doesn't allow the magazine to rotate. So we'll put it on safe, grab our magazine, load it in from the side, push a pellet in, and even with a pellet in there, if we pull the cocker down back again, you see the magazine doesn't rotate. So no double loads, and that's a really nice feature. Wish more air rifles would start implementing that. So I'll take the magazine out. So the last thing I want to mention is just the overall design of the rifle. It's a really nice little design. There are tons of really nice little features when you start looking around it. Number one, the flutings on the shroud. They just help to break it up, make it look a little more interesting. It's one of those things that's an extra design process, an extra manufacturing process, but they've gone ahead with it anyway. Also, things like the buttstock. Now this could have been just a straight piece of material, but they've opted to rake it down so that you get a better position for your head. Raking it down like so allows the Picatinny rail to be lower and allows you to use shorter mounts, which obviously helps to keep the overall depth of the rifle at a minimum. Right then, that's about it for my thoughts on the rifle. I think what we'll do next is swap the cocking handle over. So you do get a little instruction sheet when you buy the rifle, but it's always nice to see someone else run through it. And before we started, I just took the scope off, as we will need to access these screws here, and I've just made sure the rifle's nice and clear and we're putting it on safe. So first thing we're going to do is remove the grip with a 5mm Allen key in this hole down the bottom here. Stick that to one side, and the next thing we're going to do is measure our hammer spring setting. So I've already measured mine, but that's all I did. Got that measurement there, which on my rifle is 10.5. So we now know the position in which to reset our hammer spring. So next we'll take a 2.5mm Allen key and loosen the lock in the top here, this screw here, and then using a 5mm Allen key we'll take the hammer spring adjuster out. So there it is there, and we'll also tip out the hammer spring. Next we'll loosen these screws here. So this is a Torx bit and this is a T10. Move this cover piece here, remove the safety. Right then, now the screws are removed, we can get this cover piece off. And to do this, what I'm going to be using is just a little plastic hook tool. So we're going to be coming in from the bottom here and just getting it started. Right then, so once we've got it sort of semi-started, we've got some movement there, what we need to do is just gently sort of wiggle it up and down to wiggle it off this pin here. Now obviously we don't want to be coming in with blades or anything like that and levering up the sides. So we just got to do it nice and gentle. Generally what I like to do is get my finger on this corner here and in here, wiggle it up and down, and generally speaking it does come off. Next what we're going to do is undo these two screws here, and that's with a 3mm Allen key. This does loosen the buttstock, so the whole rear of the gun will go a bit wobbly, but that's alright. So with both the screws removed, what we have to do is very, very gently pick this pivot arm up here and then pull the rear of the gun away. We have to pick this little pivot up to get it off this pin here. But there we go, there's a nice look inside the rifle. The fire and safe just rotates this drum in which the trigger is unable to be pulled up when it's in safe mode. And then when it's in fire, there's a little cutout which the trigger tool can rise into. So that's safe, and then that's fire. This part in here is the little anti-double load system, and all that happens is when the hammer is pulled back, it pushes on this little pin down here and rocks that arm back and forward. Once it's locked back, it's locked using the trigger sear, and then when we pull the trigger sear we can push the hammer forward and this pin here retracts, allowing the magazine to rotate. So like I said before, a really nice little design. This part here is the hammer striker, so this hits the valve, this little pin here, and causes a puff of air to be transferred into the transfer port. But what this system also gives you is a lot of mechanical advantage. But I'll give you a nice good close-up of that, just in case you ever need to put it back together. It's rather simple when you actually get into it, but it's very nicely made and works exceptionally well. Obviously we've not got a hammer spring in at the moment, so there isn't any resistance to the hammer. But there it is, very nice indeed. We'll stick this assembly to one side for a second, and then we'll bring back the buttstock. So the buttstock has this little pin here which we need to remove. It's not pressed in, or at least it wasn't on my rifle, so you can just pull it out like so. There's the pin. Now next what we're going to do is flip the cocking handle over first. It's easier while it's outside the rifle and not connected to the buttstock. So I've just got one of my Allen keys here and I'm just going to loosen it. Bit of Loctite in there. I'm going to clean that off quickly off camera. Right then, with that cleaned up nicely, what we're going to do is swap the cocking lever over to this side. So the cocking handle needs to go on from the bottom. I am just going to put a very small amount of blue Loctite on there. Get around the threads and do that up nice and tight. So the cocking handle is going to be going on this side now. So we just need to put the arm in this side and then line the pinhole up down there. Push the pin in like that, and then we can put this back into the rifle. I'm going to slide the probe back through the middle like that, nice and carefully, and then we can just re-secure the two screws in the top there. Get them both started first, then tighten them up. Then do that up with an L-shaped Allen key. These two screws hold on the buttstock, so they need to be nice and tight so that nothing comes loose. But there we are, all nice and secure. Now before we push the arm forward, we need to lift the pivot gently, push the pellet probe through, and there we have it. We can see the rifle's not cocked as the hammer is able to move back and forward and the C is not latched up. So I wasn't going to earlier, but I think what I will do is flip the safety. With the cocking handle here it may get a little cramped in there, so we're going to flip the safety. It's easy enough to do. All we need to do is push this out. Now there is a spring and a ball in here, so just be careful. But we just push it out, and then before the ball flies out, the ball is just in that little hole there. You can just about see it. So there it is. So I'm going to tip that ball out now to save it getting lost, although I will be leaving the spring in. The spring is just in that little hole there. So we'll stick this to one side and we'll put it in a minute. So just lifting the cocking arm out the way, we'll stick the cover piece back on. So we'll just give the sides a little wipe down, and then we'll push the cover piece over the top. It's quite stiff, it is a good fit in there, so just be gentle as you push it down. Let everything align itself. There are some pins that align with holes, so just nice and careful. Next, again with the T10 Torx bit, we'll just do these screws up. And there we have it. That's the plate on, so we'll stick the safety on next. So from this side, what we need to do is drop the little ball bearing into the seat in there. Easy enough to do, just drop it in there. And then from this side, it's hard to show for the camera as I don't want to lose the ball bearing, but we'll just lightly press the safety in from this side. We are flipping the safety obviously. Then again, what we're going to do, just push the safety till it nearly contacts the ball bearing, and then using an Allen key or something similar, press the ball bearing and push the safety home. Then from this side, just rotate the safety lever until you find a position that it fits, and then drop the safety on. Again, doing that up with a T10 Torx bit, that works nicely. We can also stick the cover plate on while we're around this side, again using the same T10 Torx bit. This cover is only plastic, so it doesn't need to be done up tight, it just needs to be secured. Next we'll put the hammer spring assembly back in. I'm going to fold the gun just so you get a better view, but in here, I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up, there is a little pin in which the hammer spring needs to go over. So you see there, hammer springs around the pin, and then we'll drop the hammer spring adjuster in. Now I took the hammer spring measurement from last time, so we'll just reset it to what it was before. So 10.65, it can go in a tiny bit more, 10.5. So I'm going to leave it there. Obviously we'll need to come back and fine tune that, so this is just a rough setting. But then using a 2.5mm Allen key, we'll just do that up. Next we'll just stick the grip back on and then do that up with a 5mm Allen key. That's the rifle put back together. So the rifle does function on this side, it does close nice and easily. And then we have left-handed cocking. The safety does work on this side, but it's just a little cramped here with the cocking handle, so I chose to swap it. Right then guys, so I hope that was interesting or somewhat informative. That is the Airmaks Katran. Very nice little rifle indeed. This may well be on my wish list. I don't think this will be the last video you see of it. I do want to try and make a nice little shroud adapter to quieten down the rifle a little. But with that being said guys, Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.